To me, this is just another case of a media that enjoys selling fear to the media consumers out there, but the results on the ground are simply not reflecting that narrative. Hello and welcome everyone to my channel, The Quality Investor. With earnings season in full swing, I will be providing commentary on some of my holdings as well as some market bellwethers. Today, I will be discussing Coca-Cola, ticker KO. They are a small portion of my portfolio, but they have been beaten down in the market lately. So, with their latest earnings release, I want to understand if the negative media reports and the drop in share price is just noise, or if the earnings justify the bearish sentiment around Coca-Cola in general. All right, let's dive into the earnings. But first, if you enjoy content like this, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. So what is that negative media sentiment that's out there right now surrounding Coca-Cola? Well, there's a new weight loss drug called Ozempic that's been taking the US by storm. And we see an article here, food retailers and producers are getting slammed as GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic raise growing alarms about demand. And it only gets scarier as you read some of the sub-headlines. The rise of GLP-1 drugs is driving consumer staple stocks lower as patients eat less food. PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Walmart, and Costco have been slammed on the prospect of less food demand. Walmart's US CEO said he's already seen patients using GLP-1 drugs buy less food at the retailer. Shares of PepsiCo and Coca-Cola fell 6% this week. McDonald's lost 5%, and top food retailers, including Walmart and Costco, fell as much as 4% on Friday alone, despite the session's broader market rally. The wave of selling was initially sparked by comments from Walmart US CEO John Furner, who told Bloomberg on Wednesday that he was already seeing an impact from the GLP-1 agonists. We definitely do see a slight change compared to the total population. We do see a slight pullback in overall basket, just less units, slightly less calories, he said. So we have a new weight loss drug taking the country by storm. And those particular comments were made on October 6th, before earnings season really kicked off. So the question becomes, do the earnings of a company like Pepsi or Coke reflect this new weight loss drug that's supposedly driving sales down all over the board? Yesterday, on October 24th, Coca-Cola released their earnings. What does it have to say? Global unit case volume grew 2%. Net revenues grew 8%. Organic revenues, non-GAAP of course, grew 11%. Operating income grew 6%. Operating margin was 27.4% versus 27.9% in the prior year, a slight squeeze of margins. EPS grew 9% to 71 cents a share. Comparable EPS for non-GAAP grew 7% to 74 cents a share. So the headline numbers that Coca-Cola released, they seem all well and good. They don't seem to be reflecting this crazy decrease in demand for food and other sugary drinks. However, Coke really measures their demand by volume of their unit cases in concentrate sales. So worldwide, in the 3 months ended in September 29th, 2023, worldwide 2% increase of unit cases sold and a 3% increase in concentrate sales. And the biggest driver that we saw for these increases in unit cases and concentrate sales was in Latin America, with a 7% increase in unit cases and a 5% increase in concentrate. So despite the negative narrative that has formed around the purveyors of sugar water, we're seeing an increase in demand in general. So how did a 2% increase in demand turn into an 8% increase in revenues? Well, revenues were $11 billion in the prior year quarter, and this quarter they were $11.9 billion. So we see that volume 2%. The other part of it, though, is this price, product, and geographic mix of 9% increase on a consolidated worldwide basis. Earlier this year, Coca-Cola announced they were increasing their prices due to the inflationary world that we're now living in. And we're seeing here, despite those price increases, Coca-Cola still had an increase in their demand. In the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, favorable pricing initiatives, including inflationary pricing in Turkey and Zimbabwe. Latin America, favorable pricing initiatives, including inflationary pricing in Argentina. North America, favorable pricing initiatives, on and on. So to me, Coca-Cola continues to demonstrate one of my investment theses, which is their very strong economic moat. They increase prices, and yet they still see a demand increase. So we turn to the earnings call, and we have an article here from the Financial Times. Coca-Cola plays down weight loss drug fears as it raises revenue forecast. Again, despite all this negative sentiment around this new weight loss drug craze, Coca-Cola has even raised their revenue forecast for the rest of 2023, and they are also predicting a very strong 2024. On the call, Coca-Cola executives, Coca-Cola has emphasized that more than 2/3 of its portfolio is made up of low and no calorie products as consumer groups respond to concerns that the growing use of obesity drugs such as Ozempic could erode sales if patients were to buy fewer unhealthy food and drinks. The drinks giant's chief financial officer, John Murphy, told the Financial Times he had not seen any discernible impact from the drugs and that it would continue to offer products for customers looking to manage their calorie intake. There's a lot of different views out there as to whether or not it is having an impact, said Murphy, adding that for people looking to manage their calorie intake, Coca-Cola has a vast portfolio. And even as I was listening to the earnings call, I never got the sentiment that they had any worry about these particular drugs at all. And in fact, they kind of brushed aside any sort of concern that the analysts that were asking questions had about them. This article further states, early studies and forecasts indicate that consumers taking these drugs are more likely to eat healthier, whole foods, and fewer foods high in salt, sugar, and fat. Patients taking the drugs could reduce their daily calorie intake by up to 30%, according to Morgan Stanley. The article also notes that Coca-Cola's share price has languished despite continued better than expected performance over the past few quarters. The Fanta and Sprite maker raised its revenue forecast on Tuesday following strong third quarter sales as consumers bought more fizzy drinks despite continued price rises. To me, this is just another case of a media that enjoys selling fear to the media consumers out there and having all these bearish sentiments on various companies, but the results on the ground are simply not reflecting that narrative. Basic net income per share is up, revenues are up. Everything about Coca-Cola's quarter in the third quarter was very strong, and to me, reinforced my investment thesis. So Coca-Cola had a very strong third quarter, and I think it's time to put to bed this narrative around all these weight loss drugs completely damaging these consumer food companies. However, don't expect Coca-Cola to suddenly become this torrid growth company. The reason they're in my portfolio is for stabilization, and I just expect slow, steady growth over the long term, as well as steady growth in that dividend. Ultimately, I have Coca-Cola valued about $64.49 a share after this latest earnings release, which gives us about a 15.9% upside from the current price of $55.64. But if you add in a margin of safety of 20%, that becomes an acceptable buy price of $51.59. So over the next couple months, we may see that price drop a little bit to maybe in the $50 to $52 range, at which point it would be a good time to pick up some shares if that margin of safety is where you're comfortable. However, at a 10% margin of safety, then with that little bit more risk, you have an acceptable buy price of $58.05. So don't hesitate right now to go out there and pick up some Coca-Cola shares at a nice discount. All right, before we go, I do want to emphasize this is not financial advice, and I do own shares of Coca-Cola. And with that, thank you for watching today's video. And what do you think? I love the feedback, so comment below with your thoughts. Also, please hit that like button. And if you found this info helpful, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you and happy investing.